All right, what is going on, everybody, on YouTube and LinkedIn? For those of you that may be tuning in on LinkedIn, still figuring out the whole Instagram link with this platform that we use. But if you're new and going to be tuning in for the first time, welcome, be it live or once this goes from a live to a video upload. Welcome. This stream was off the cusp, had some time this morning on a client. If you don't know who I am, of course, my name is Griffin Thomas. I actually own a pest control company in the Dallas, Texas area, Preferred Pest Management. And on my channel overall, I've just been documenting my business journey, so to speak, pretty much since I was fresh out of high school. Been on YouTube for about 10 years now. And like I said, we just document that. A lot of my videos come from questions that I get from you guys. And wow, that sun is bright this morning. But yeah, a lot of the videos that I do, they come from in-depth, very in-depth in some cases, questions that I get from you guys, which by the way, we also now have a phone number that you can text or leave a voicemail at. I'll have that scrolling along somewhere, either top or bottom along the video at some point once I get stopped here in a minute. But yeah, like I said, this stream, I expect to have minimal activity today, but it's been a while since I've done a live Q&A. I think it's already been like 2 or 3 weeks since we've done a Q&A, and I had about a 35 minute drive this morning. So I was like, hey, let's go ahead and whoever can hop in can ask whatever questions. And then, of course, if you see this after it goes from a live to a video, you can always drop questions in, and I always like catch up on them either in the next stream, or if it's a in-depth question, I'll even do a detailed video about your question as well. So let's see. I know it usually takes a few minutes for anybody to hop in. So in terms of overall topics, the main topic, as you guys could tell, going into this Q&A was just the, I don't know if I want to call it a journey as much as transition between, you might be a technician. I know a lot of you guys are technicians, or you're looking at just getting into pest control for the first time. You're probably going to go through that technician phase, maybe sales, depending on your calling and what get a job for ultimately. But a lot of my viewers are technicians that are either aspiring to become, solo operators or business owners in the pest control industry, or they just recently made that transition. And for those of you that have made that transition, you probably know that it's much more in depth than what a lot of people expect, including me. I always, for the last year or two, have said now that if your sole goal and purpose of going from like technician, service manager, whatever the case may be, working for one of these companies, to starting your own company is just to kind of, work for yourself, not necessarily grow a 7-figure, 8-figure, whatever business, then to be flat out honest, a lot of my content, it'll still apply to you, but there's quite a bit of it that won't either. And the reason being is because, yes, a lot of stuff that's foundational that I've mentioned on this channel, like learning how to set up, your Google business profile, optimizing it so you can have a solid 10, 20, 40, 50 leads coming in each month, depending on, the area that you are located in. Obviously, more population, more leads, generally speaking, but depending on your area, you can get a bunch of leads, right? For quote unquote free after just setting up your business profile and continuing to maintain your business profile. But there's also this caveat of, well, how much do you really want to? Because we talk a lot about Google Ads, we talk a lot about leadership, we talk a lot about, all the different aspects that I'm starting to really dive into now that I've gone more so from technician to business owner, so to speak, in terms of working more on the business than in the business. For example, this is my first time getting out in the field in probably a week or two. Like, I mean, it's not very common for me to get out in the field. When I do get out in the field, it's usually a good sign. It means we're, pretty busy, and it just works out better for me to go run a stop versus my tech. But some of that obviously isn't going to necessarily apply to somebody who just wants to be a one man operation. So when you're making that transition, to summarize this point here, when you're making that transition from technician to business owner, the very first thing that you have got to make your decision on is, what do I want? What is my end goal? Because, and really think about it. Don't just, oh, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to do $1 million. Like, oh, okay, that's like what everybody wants, obviously. But what do you actually want? Like, what is actually going to fit your lifestyle? What do you actually, how much are you willing to sacrifice, and how much are you willing to, dive in, so to speak, for 5 years, 10 years to get to where you want to be? And what stage of life are you in too? Because I even have to reevaluate kind of, periodically, and remind myself, like, yeah, I can't necessarily go balls to the walls as I would if, my kids were grown, right? Or if I had no kids at all, right? Like, you have to make certain calls to still be, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, in your zone, so to speak. I'm still waking up. I haven't had my caffeine yet this morning, which I'm about to go get. But my whole point with that is, take a look at where you're at right now before starting your business, and make that determination of, where do I want to go? Where do I plan on going, this first year, this first 5 years, and then maybe even, 10, 20 years? Do you plan on exiting, or do you plan on, like we said, just having a one man operation where, you're making 50 to 100,000, maybe even $150,000 a year, and you can still sell that. Matter of fact, I found out that my brother, who just took over a route less than a year ago, he ended up getting a job that he preferred over running this route and trying to grow the route. I didn't think he was going to get, but maybe what was going to come out to like $100 per client, because it was just such a small operation, and he still got pushing $30,000-$40,000 out of that deal, and he took over this less than a year ago. So not to say that, those solo operations are worthless. Apparently, they're even worth a little bit more than what I was even expecting. But, just kind of map all that out, because then from there, you can not waste energy, waste money, all these resources that aren't just essential for your business, but for your life as well. Because if you go in kind of cloudy, like, well, I kind of want this, oh, well, I kind of want that, you're going to be day to day kind of bouncing around. Like, one day, when you have a downward momentum swing, because obviously momentum is both positive and negative, when you have that downward momentum, you're just going to be totally like, pendulum swinging back and forth. You're going to be, oh, F this, I don't care, I'm just going to, burn it all down and just be a one man show. And then when you make that irrational, I should say, decision, and then some good things start happening, you're gonna be like, dude, like, what was I doing? Like, you're gonna be constantly self sabotaging yourself. So, always have that end goal, if that makes sense. And the end goal can change too. Like, you know, not to say that you shouldn't shoot for the stars. If you're watching this channel, there's a good chance that, you're wanting probably 7, 8, who knows, maybe even 9-figure company, or at least an exit of that size, maybe. But I know also that there's quite a few of you who are like, I just want to work for myself. I'm tired of all the corporate BS. I just want to, if I can make 100,000, 150,000 a year, working 6 to 8 hours a day, cool. And like, that's awesome. Like, I mean, that's still freedom, because like, you have the life that you want, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So, as some people are hopping in here, like always, we have a little subject that I hit on the first 5-10 minutes, and then we dive into some Q&A. And let's see. Before I answer this first question, if you all have any other questions, feel free to throw them out in the chat too. Before I get to answering the questions and everything, I have to fill up some gas really quick. I didn't realize I was at 12 miles till empty before leaving this morning. So I got to fill up the tank here real quick, go in and get some caffeine, so I'll be nice and energized for the rest of the stream. Throw your questions, comments, anything like that in the chat, and I will be right back.
Anyone know what's on page 10 of search results? SEMrush can help you get found online. Try it too? Optimize your website, create content that ranks, and earn backlinks. Rank higher with SEMrush.
All right, we are back. Let me get the chat pulled back up here. Let's see. Oh, apparently we had a couple questions from y'all. Let's see. Shout out. Oops, come on. I don't know why it's not. There we go. For some reason, your comment wasn't showing up for me. Shout out Banks Pest Control. Let's see. Best chemical for restaurant interiors for GPC. Assuming, you know, no German roaches in the restaurant, which for some reason we were on a roll about a year ago, roughly, with just tons and tons of commercials that had German roaches bad. And I would even say, even if they're not, I like using Alpine WSG. Again, it depends on the situation, but because obviously Alpine WSG is not a cheap chemical either, but that kind of tends to be my go-to in all honesty. I'm trying to think what else I've been having my tech use lately. I think a good Lambda product too isn't bad either, but for the most part, one of those two are kind of what we tend to go with for the most part. Let's see. And shout out to Eric. Was it Eric 213? Let's see. Get you pulled up here. Do you have a salesperson? It is so funny you bring this up actually, because me and my tech, who, like most of you all know who have been following the channel for a while, he's kind of like my number. Well, I mean, he's technically like my only other employee at the moment, but he's like my number two, so to speak. Like we are constantly talking business and just how to continue to grow this thing and grow it quicker. Our sales are up something like ridiculous, like 68% this year, but we're always just looking at, okay, how can we get, okay, now we're getting calls and leads every day, how can we get 10, 15 a day? Like we're constantly looking at pushing that needle forward. And one of the things that we've been talking about a lot over the last like 90 days is hiring some type of salesperson, door to door next spring, something like that. You guys know I'm not very fond of door to door, but you cannot deny that it works ultimately. Again, it all just depends on what are your goals, and that's kind of the catch 22 right now for us, is we're trying to balance. Like, one thing we're talking about is we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and not have technicians, like have enough technicians trained and ready to go to fulfill all this new work that will be coming in. So chances are what we're probably going to do, speaking of hiring a salesperson, is going with a individual salesperson first, and then as we start to kind of continue to grow, get technicians, keep building the foundation of admin, just customer support, so to speak, delivering on the service, right? Because what's the point in getting 50 leads a day, 20 leads a day, if you only have the capacity to service maybe 10 to 20, right? So, and not just service them, but service them well with good customer support. Like, there's so much that goes into it. But yeah, that's what we're actually looking at doing. So that's why I said it's funny that you brought that up, because we've been really kind of diving into that lately. I'm just sending my customer my on my way text here really quick. Let's see. Which, by the way, if you're not using Gorilla Desk's SMS feature, such a game changer. I cannot believe that we haven't done this since like day one. Let's see. This is preferred pest management. Should be arriving around 9:15 a.m. And send. Okay. All right. Let's see. Make sure if we got any other questions here. Do. Oh, dang. Yeah, we have had some more questions come in. Let's see. I'll put this on stage. Faro says, "Up, bro? You going to Hermosi's workshop ever?" I am going in December. I think I saw you comment about that recently. It's $5,000 2 days. Not anytime too soon. It is something though that, like, longer term, I'm always all about investing in your knowledge, right? Obviously, like, YouTube's great, yada yada yada, but let's be real. Even me, like, I give a lot of or at least I like to believe that I do. I don't hold anything back or anything. Like, I give a lot of information, but there's always more, right? And sometimes you can learn, and it's not so much about like what you can learn, but the speed that you can learn it too. Because, say for example, that $5,000 you're talking about for 2 days, $2,500 a day essentially. Some people look at that as, wow, $2,500 a day, that's ridiculous. Da, 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 da. And it's like, well, $2,500 a day, let's break it down. Let's break the math down here. $2,500 a day, that comes out to about 1 to 2 routes worth of work. So what return do I need on that money in terms of new knowledge that I can apply to my business to make that worth it? And then that's the calculation, right? Now, where we're at right now, $5,000, that's considerable still amount of money. And I'm still looking at it from the standpoint of, because we're still trying to increase we don't have a problem with like closing rates or anything like that, which I will give Alex Hermosi tons and tons of credit, like I always do. His books deliver so much value that you almost wonder, to a degree, like, how much more can I actually pull, right? But like, we don't really have necessarily like a closing problem at this point. We have more of a lead gen problem, in terms of, we're generating leads every single day, but we want to take that next step, which just requires more advertising budget at this point. Either more advertising budget, or, like we said, door to door, cold calling, an outside salesperson, whatever the case may be. So that $5,000, how I look at it is it would have to have such a large return because I compare it to what if I just invest it into the marketing, etc. Right? Um, like I said too, knowledge is obviously the old adage goes, knowledge is power, but we're not quite to the stage yet where like I can just say, oh yeah, I'm gonna drop $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 into like my education at this moment. Like I'm investing, you know, hundreds of dollars here, hundreds of dollars there, which I picked up some good. Like my whole point is I'm investing into stuff that like I can apply like immediately. Where a lot of his stuff, just being flat out honest in terms of that higher dollar stuff, it's going to be stuff that is when I'm a little bit further down the road, just to be completely honest and being self aware with where we're at as a company right now. Like that stuff that's like, I'm definitely going to, it's just more further down the road, if that makes sense. But yeah, you'll definitely have to keep us updated in terms of how that's going because um, y'all know I love his stuff too. And yeah, no, I mean, that's one thing too. Speaking of this whole, what we were talking about when I first started the stream about, you know, what is it that you want whenever you're starting your business? Do you want, you know, a large company or do you want just a one man show? Like obviously a one man show, it's pretty straightforward. Like just figure out how to get a few leads, you know, every month, and you know your business will grow slowly but surely. You'll make your $100,000 to $200,000 a year. And, you know, you don't really need to invest any more than that, right? In terms of education, and get a good CPA, yada yada, and you know you're good to go. But there's also the flip side of that, where if you're somebody who is more ambitious and you want 7, 8 figure company, then people have knowledge that you do not have, and either you're going to pay in terms of time, many years, because those are the two currencies ultimately. It's time or it's money. So you don't necessarily have to pay people for their knowledge, but you're probably one still going to pay because obviously the time it's going to take you through trial and error of learning, but also the money that you're potentially going to waste in terms of not knowing what you're doing. For example, marketing. Um, I've invested a little bit in terms of, you know, some one-off courses and things like that because like I have a background to a degree in marketing. It's a subject that just I've always been interested in. It kind of comes naturally ish to a degree, but I knew too that there was some technical stuff in terms of marketing tracking, things like that to really calculate to a penny your ROI that I did not know how to do. So I went and got that information because otherwise, again, it's one of those things where like if you don't figure it out, then you are going to be wasting a lot of money on trial and error because with marketing, I mean, that's a great example actually, because with marketing, say you don't know how to track. Well, you could be having a Facebook campaign, right? You could have Instagram stories campaign, a Google ads campaign, a Yelp campaign. You could have all these different campaigns and then like not even know that, oh man, Yelp is burning a hole in my pocket. We haven't gotten a single legit lead from Yelp, but we spent $2,000 on it, right? So, which ask me how I know, right? Like again, it's just the trials and errors of business. So it's like either you pay with your own money and time, or you can pay other people that have been there, done that, and you know, you cut the line, so to speak. By the way, if you have not tried First Form's new energy drinks, because I guess they recently redid a bunch of it, the grape smash specifically. I'm not a grape soda, like grape juice type of fan, but that grape smash is, it is good. Let's see. Do. I already saw this comment about Hermosi's workshop. Greetings from New York. New York in the house. Let's see. Oops. I think I might have accidentally missed some comments here. Eric said, also, are you going to Pest World? This year, no. I think, if I remember right, it's in Florida. I think it's in Orlando, if I recall. I forget exactly where it's at this year, but no, not this year. Again, kind of going back to the Alex Hermosi talk that we were just having a minute ago. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we definitely want to be going to those long term, but right now it's just, well, where am I going to get a higher ROI? Am I going to get a higher ROI going to, say, Pest World, or staying in town, continuing to work on the business, work on building connections, going to these networking groups, going to these sponsorship events where, one, we're not just building networks, but we're also getting like backlinks for our website. We gathered about 4 or 5 hyper local backlinks over the last couple weeks, which we're already noticing that causing a large uptick in our website rankings, beginning to jump. Only in Dallas does it take 1 hour to drive about 15 miles. Gotta love it. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where, just like what we were talking about with the Hermosi thing, long term, absolutely. Like, it'll probably be kind of like a yearly thing. But right now, like, the one I really wanted to go to is obviously the one in Hawaii a couple years ago. Because some of it's destination related too, obviously. Like, you want to have a little bit of fun while you're there. Like, yeah, it's a business trip, but you want to take the family, in my case, and have a little fun. And think, what was it, a year ago? It was in Denver. So I was like, there's no reason for me to want to go to Denver at all. But yeah, let's see. What's up, Bug Out? Shout out Bug Out, Pest and Termite. For some reason, it's not letting me scroll through these comments. I know I got some questions and comments from you guys that I haven't addressed. Guess what I could do too is I can pull up the chat over here too. Yeah, no. That's one thing in terms of like a mental hurdle, that even in terms of just self-awareness, that I have really worked on a lot, was thinking that, like, because don't get me wrong, the internet, especially now with AI and everything, like ChatGPT and all this, like, so much of the world in terms of knowledge is at your fingertips for virtually free. But like we said too, the bad news is there is a lot of BS out there as well. So sometimes it can be worth the investment to, quote unquote, skip the line. Don't want to hear that. Yeah, I was just making sure I got your all's chat pulled up here. Let's see. We got the greetings from New York. Digging of New York said 19 years in the industry. Man. If you want to stay busy during winter, focus on commercial. Absolutely. Yeah, no, we have had a large spike in commercial activity over the last year or two. I don't know. The only thing I could figure is I recently got an office in Plano, Texas. Same location actually that we were at for a few years ago, but now that we have a lot more reviews and our profile is way more optimized than ever, we have had a large influx of commercial calls. I mean, it seems like on a weekly basis now. Like, if nothing else, we are quoting, one to two a week. We recently landed actually multiple apartment complexes that, well, I say multiple. The other one is still in the works. Let's put it that way. They're having us like come out kind of on demand at the moment, but they are going to be having us also do theirs full time. So once we add that one, we're going to have added three apartment complexes over the last like month or two. And yeah, I mean, that's hundreds of dollars per month that, it's just like clockwork essentially. And how we kind of scripted it as well in terms of how we quoted them, it works great for both sides. Like they're getting a great rate on the maintenance aspect, and then we're getting a great rate in terms of if there's ever any bed bug jobs, German cockroach cleanouts, things that are going to take more time because that is what they were focused on. They were like, hey, the companies that we've used, like a lot of you, I'm sure, have noticed a lot of companies when it comes to apartment complexes, they literally are like in and out. They can't really dedicate but like 1 minute or so per unit, where like us, we're kind of taking a different approach to it, which does in fact require some more time, certain treatments. But we get a list from them ahead of time so we can plan our schedule accordingly, because we're also going to be making a lot more money if there are, like, I think one time we had like 10 German cockroach cleanouts and two bed bug treatments on one day at that apartment complex. And yes, it took about half a day, but it was something ridiculous, like close to, I don't remember, like $1,100 to $2,000 worth of production on the books. So obviously that was worth the 4 to 6 hours that day. That, I don't even think it was six. I think it was like 4 hours that we spent that day. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like, not going to lie, I think I even have a video on this channel, as a matter of fact, about the fact that like I wasn't really pro commercial, like a proponent of commercial work or anything like that. That I love residential, but I will say like the commercial work, like it's definitely grown on me, especially obviously from the cash flow standpoint, because if there's one way to keep your business alive during those slower months, slower times, it's having that quote unquote guaranteed money on the books. And commercial is about as close to guaranteed money as you can get, especially if you have them on 1 year, 2 year, 3 year terms or whatever. So, yeah, that is definitely a good point there. Let's see. Eric said, salesperson is my next move. Also, I have one tech currently. I currently do sales and initials. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it sounds like we're kind of on the same page right now in that regard. Let's see. Would you say the ads on Yelp is not worth it? From my experience, not really worth it. I did give it what I believe was like an honest try. We ran it with a pretty hefty budget, at least in terms of Yelp terms, like hefty budget. But my God, I mean, in terms of leads that were at least half legit, like, you at least had any type of conversation with them, was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was like 10% or less. Like, it was not good at all. And that, again, like any lead generation platform, any marketing source that you're going to go through, like that's always the constant equation, right? Like what is our cost per acquisition versus our expected LTV of that customer? And once the cost per acquisition just gets to a point where it doesn't make sense anymore, it doesn't make sense, right? So that's kind of where we were with Yelp. We had spent, oh my gosh, I don't even know, close to $1,000 in 1 month, less than a month recently. I think it was back in June. It was either May or June, during prime season too. And just, yeah, it just wasn't great. Like, we got one customer who she did pay for the year, so like that helped tremendously because she went ahead and paid for the year. Then we had one client that, oh, what was it? I think it was just like a one-off bed bug job, which he was kind of a nightmare to deal with, not gonna lie. Yeah, that was a whole deal. But so it's like it wasn't just a total loss or anything. Like, we weren't in the negative, but again, when we're talking about allocating resources and money, if we were a larger company, probably keep Yelp going. I mean, there's a reason why the largest competitors do, right? Like, if it can at least break even or make a little bit of money, then like it's worth doing, right? But when I look at different avenues that we can invest our money based on where we're at right now, Yelp just isn't worth it. So I'm not going to say like it's not worth it, period. But depending on what stage you are at, for most people, not really worth it. Like, there's just other avenues that you can tap out first. With my last digging up New York, so with my last pest control company, my business partner and I went 5 years without any marketing, bringing uh, over 500,000 a year. To God be the glory. Yeah, man, that's crazy. I'm guessing you had the Google Business profile up for that if you're still in here. How do you approach keeping busy in the winter? Rodent and wildlife work, and then commercial, like we were talking about. Commercial work is a big plus, but also exclusions because, like me and my tech were talking about, I think just yesterday, as a matter of fact, because we're starting to notice slowly but surely some more rodent calls are starting to come back in. And based on where we are ranking for rodent related terms, our rankings have gone up, and we were already getting a ridiculous amount of rodent and wildlife calls last winter from like October, November through what, April, essentially, like for a solid 5, 6 months. So we were just kind of running some rough numbers like, man, like if we just matched last year's volume, like last season, rodent season volume, there's a good chance we could be doing 1 to 2 or more exclusions per day. Like, we might be forced to go ahead and hire a technician. And, just kind of, again, we're always talking, like I say, he's like my number two, essentially. So, like, we're always kind of just looking ahead, if then, always like, I always imagine that meme of I forget what movie it was from or TV show it's from, the dude with the crazy hair, and you see the board in the background with all these different strings, and he's like, just like trying to explain something crazy or whatever. That's how it feels a lot of the time. But yeah, no, I mean, shoot, rodent work is like our bread and butter during the winter. Like, you got to think, average exclusion job, give or take 1,500 bucks. Some are 2 to 3 thousand, some are, 1,000 bucks, but on the low end, 1,500 buck average. So say you are doing even just one of those per day, 5 days a week, not a Saturday, anything like that, just 5 days a week. 1,500 times five is what, 7,500 bucks a week in new revenue. Obviously, it's one-time revenue with a caveat. We always set up a yearly warranty renewal. Only about half of them end up sticking with it, but again, that's just when you're always looking at how can I turn a one time into recurring. That's why, like, even our one time pest control, we have 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 180-day, and 365-day emails that go out like, hey, it's been X amount of days. Do you need another service? Like, we're always looking at how can we turn one time revenue into, if nothing else, maybe not recurring revenue, but reoccurring revenue. Um, so yeah. The main thing is definitely rodent work for us, but then like we said too, continuing to build up that commercial presence as well. Let's see. No no paid ads in Yelp, and I've gotten 2 termites and a few recurring customers. They do call and harass. Yeah, they do. Yeah. The one, like I've said in the past too, a little hack for you guys is oh, if they call you and you tell them that you're actually with a call center that represents Preferred Pest Management or whatever your company is, um, that will kind of get them off your back. Let's see. Oh, and I am kind of going through a dead spot right now. So if it's kind of funky right now, or two, we'll be out of this dead zone here. Do you advertise in the winter? Let's see. Do you advertise in the winter, and what is your max? Let me see. I lost the comment. Oh, what is your max CPC cost that you cap your ads? So it depends. Like whenever we start a new campaign, I will go through, like I love doing what are called single keyword ad groups, which means literally every keyword has its own ad group, right? Which allows really kind of fine tune in terms of cost per click. Usually in my area, man, the cost per clicks vary so much. Like I always start out with long tail keywords and then from there try to dial it back to, those more high intent terms, right? Because obviously with like long tail keywords, they're high intent too a lot of times, but there's just not a lot of search volume behind them, hence why they're a lot cheaper. But you can get some quick wins that way. And then when Google starts seeing, okay, these are the type of customers that, are converting for them, it makes it a little bit easier to manage your cost per click for those quote unquote more expensive terms. Like there's terms that, Google will claim that some of our competitors are willing to pay like $50 per click on, which is just ridiculous, by the way. You'd have to be converting like 2 out of 10 clicks. Like it's just dumb. But we get away with doing, around $20 roughly. 20, sometimes 25 at first. But I try to not let it get above $20 to $25 because again, my rule of thumb is I always go in assuming that 1 out of 10 clicks is going to lead to a customer, 1 out of 15 to 20, like worst case scenario. So say 1 out of 10 result in a customer and I'm spending $20, that's $200 per acquisition. Say it's 20, that's $400 per acquisition. So again, this is where you really have to have your LTV dialed in. Like what am I going to make off of this customer? And am I okay with the fact that there might be a couple of customers here and there that, yeah, you get a 1 year contract on them and it's like a $400 or $500 contract, but then after that they cancel, they move, they lose their job, whatever the case may be. Like that's gonna happen, obviously. So um no, having all those numbers kind of dialed in, that really, and then too your market, obviously some of you all are in markets that I would kill to be in, where you can get away with like $10 a click on some pretty high intent keywords, like not just high intent but high search volume, like pest control near me. If you're getting pest control near me for under $20 per click, you need to be sending the house at that. Like that's such a great search term that is so high converting that if you're getting that for $20 or less, you need to be pouncing on that. Let's see. Have you noticed a reduction in organic Google My Business leads? Um, ooh, yes and no. I have noticed for some of those like more competitive terms, kind of like how it works with Google Ads, some of those more competitive terms like pest control near me, we have noticed a little bit of a drop off in some of those terms, but then we notice a huge uptick in some terms, like the commercial pest control. That's we're using a tool like Local Falcon is who we use, but there's a bunch of other ones out there too. I'm forgetting off the top of my head right now, but if you just type in on Google any like Google My Business search grid, there'll be a bunch of Bright Local. That's another one. Those are kind of the two big ones, Bright Local and Local Falcon. I like Local Falcon. It's slightly cheaper in terms of the number of searches that you get in terms of credits. It's a little bit cheaper and just as good as Bright Local. But using a platform like that to track, okay, what are we looking at from a 3 mile, 5 mile, 10-mile radius, depending on, again, the search volume in your area. Or not just search volume, but like, the population density of your area. That's going to make a big difference too, obviously. But yeah, like we've noticed for certain terms like commercial pest control near me, hence probably the large uptick in commercial work, right? Rodent terms, like a lot of rodent terms were showing up number one in like a 5 to 10 mile radius for in a very populated and very competitive area too. Plano, Texas. Anyone that knows anything about the Dallas market knows like it is very competitive. And we're not crushing it in terms of like we don't have thousands of reviews. Like a lot of our competitors have 1,000, 3,000, 7,000. One of them has reviews, and we're still ranking ahead of quite a few of them for a lot of high demand terms. So we're all behind a tractor going 14 miles an hour right now. It is fun. I can't tell if he's getting ready to turn. Anyways, yeah. Yeah, no, like I said, I would say we noticed in terms of some terms, yes, a drop off, but then we noticed increase in others. I would say overall net change, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, very little difference though. Long, long answer made somewhat short. Yes, at Google profile, did not run any ads. Most came from word of mouth. Just do your best in all your accounts. Exactly. Yeah, that's one thing that I always stress is like, always treat the account that you're with as like, the main account, right? Don't get caught up in like looking ahead towards, oh man, I'm starting to run behind. Like if we get too behind, then like, it is what it is ultimately. Like people understand, most people I should say, understand that with service work, sometimes the day gets away from you and sometimes you have to circle back, right? So let's see. Focus on non-profit organizations and commercial. Yep, exactly. How's it going, King Matt? Good morning. Just curious, have you set up Zapier with Gorilla Desk to help it? Oops, hold on. To help it what? To help it route and schedule. So it it can connect to open phones and text out too. Yeah, I haven't really needed to do all that because like in terms of the routing side, like one, we have like every feature that's available with Gorilla Desk outside of VoIP right now. We even have the SMS. So I mean, we don't have VoIP, but we do have SMS. So like all text messages and stuff are primarily handled inside of Gorilla Desk. And then the routing, we just use like the Gorilla Desk Route Optimizer. Honestly, in terms of Zapier, like the only or Zapier, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, the only thing that we tend to have to do with it still is when a phone call ends and we tag it in call rail as like pest control lead, commercial lead, rodent lead, whatever the case may be, where it's a lead, we have a trigger that will send that information from CallRail over to Gorilla Desk and enter it as a lead for us, which takes out a little bit of the work in terms of entering in lead information, like the phone numbers right there. And same thing with our online form too. Anytime a form is filled out on our website, same thing happens automatically. All the information, email, phone number, customer name, all that gets entered into Gorilla Desk because of a automation in Zapier that we set up a long while back now. But honestly, I look long term, and Chris can either confirm or deny this, but I can see long term a world where Gorilla Desk kind of finds a way. It seems like they're working that way already with having now their own contact form you can embed in your website too. That long term, they will kind of be an all in one platform. Like, I would use their contact form if I could find a way to integrate it with our marketing tracking. But as of now, I don't know that that's even possible. So, again, it seems like they're kind of slowly but surely getting to the point where, they'll kind of be an all in one platform in that regard. So, let's see. Good morning, Jonathan Lamb. Hopefully, you're having a great start to your morning and happy Friday. By the way, love the content. Keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, no, I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate all you. I'm surprised, in all honesty, that we even have a dozen, roughly. Last I looked, about a dozen of y'all tuning in right now because it's a Friday. It's in the middle of the morning. I know a lot of y'all got stops to do and work to get to. Speaking of which, I'm pulling up to my stop now, so I'll be hopping off here in just a second. But yeah, no, I always appreciate y'all tuning in. And let's see, I think we had one more. Are your thoughts going to convert, or not thoughts? Are you going to convert to VoIP soon, or what are your thoughts? Yes, that's kind of the plan. I don't know if you all watched or listened to my whole interview with Chris from back in June, I believe. If you haven't, definitely go check that out. But um, he almost kind of hinted at the fact that VoIP is really expensive right now because it's still, to a degree, it's not in beta, but it ish kind of is, and that he plans on, at least, again, unless if I misinterpreted what he said in that interview, it sounds like they want to actually make that more affordable long term, for like everybody, right? Kind of like the SMS. Like, the SMS is very affordable. So yeah, I'm keeping my eyes out very, very closely on the VoIP option. Right now, open phone is just so affordable that, like, it's very hard to, like, just make that switch. But I know once we do, it's going to make everything 100 times easier. Driving my route too. But yeah, no. Like I said, I just rolled up here to my account, my only one actually that I'm running today. We've been on here, wow, for about an hour already. So hopefully, as always, you guys did find this stream valuable and informative. Of course, if you have any questions or anything, once this goes from a live to a actual video, then feel free to drop it in the comments as always. If you're not in our Facebook group, we now have, I forget how many, pushing 200 members in there now. Our Discord has something like 300 members in it. Those are free to join. I don't know actually if there's a link in my description box. If not, I will get that put in there. But all of our other videos have it too. So if you have any issues, just click on one of the other videos and you'll see my link tree, and it has all the helpful links for you guys too. And hopefully, like I say, you guys did find some valuable information from this, or nothing else, a little motivation. If you did, do me a favor, as always, smash the thumbs up button, share it with somebody if you know somebody that could benefit from it. I appreciate you guys as always, and have a great weekend and keep crushing it out there.